Coming up on the first episode of MilCyberSync, cyber hacktivists targeting critical Belarusian infrastructure.
Also ahead, new legislation passes the Senate to bolster cybersecurity here at home.
Plus, production set to start on 2 new supercomputers. We've got those stories and more, so get ready to get in sync with MilCyberSync.
You're watching the MilCyberSync Weekly News with your host, Nick Thomas, and news anchor, Layla Gulen.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of the MilCyberSync podcast, reporting on events for the week ending March 4th. I'm news anchor Layla Gulen with your host Nick Thomas. Nick, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Layla. I'm so excited that the InfoSec podcast is now relaunched as the MilCyberSync podcast, and it's actually a program of the Military Cyber Professional Association.
Well, I'm really excited too, and we would like to take a moment to thank the annual sponsors of that educational nonprofit organization, Capital Technology University, Wicker, Looker, Virginia Tech National Security Institute, Excelio, Nutanix, and IDS International. You can find more information about the MCPA at public.milcyber.org.
Yes. We thank those sponsors and all the partners and members of the MCPA for their support so we can bring you the news and insights you need at the intersection of cyberspace and national defense. In an episode coming soon, we'll be digging into the details of MCPA's first national convention, HammerCon, happening on May 19th in Laurel, Maryland, where you can come and meet me and so many other members of this broader community. But first, the news. Our first story today has to dealing with Ukraine's cyber attack. The ransomware was used as a decoy in some of the recent data wiping cyber attacks against organizations in Ukraine. The cyber attacks employed HermeticWiper, a piece of malware that was designed solely to damage the master boot record of the target system, rendering the machine unusable. Once executed, the wiper adjusts its settings to gain read access control to any file, then gains the privileges required to load and unload device drivers, disables crash dumps to cover its tracks, disables the volume shadow service, and loads a benign partition manager, which it abuses to corrupt the MBR. While the attacks were executed hours before Russia launched an invasion of Ukraine, they appear to have been in preparation for months. Both IBM and Symantec warn that the developing situation in Ukraine is expected to be accompanied by more destructive cyber attacks, potentially escalating in parallel with the ongoing conflict, Layla.
Well, Belarus has suffered backlash from several cyber hacktivist groups after renouncing its non-nuclear status and supporting the movement of the Kremlin's nuclear weapons into the country. The cyber attacks have targeted and disrupted services of Belarus's railway and banking systems. The motive behind the cyber attack is slowing down the supply chain of the Russian army, which is transporting ammunition and additional troops to the frontline units. The hacktivists say they are not targeting Belarusian citizens or trying to cause inconvenience to them. Meanwhile, Ukraine is asking for digital volunteers to make up Ukraine's first line of defense against cyber activities targeted toward the country, as well as offense actions if required. Nick.
In fact, Ukraine's Computer Emergency Response Team has warned of Belarusian state-sponsored hackers targeting its military personnel and related individuals as part of a phishing campaign. The Ukrainian government attributed the activities to a threat actor tracked as UNC 1151, a Minsk-based group whose members are officers of the Ministry of Defense of the Republic of Belarus. UNC 1151 is the mandate-assigned moniker to an uncategorized threat cluster, which operates with objectives that are aligned with Belarusian government interests. Layla?
Well, a Ukrainian cybersecurity researcher has released information that may help in the fight against a prevalent ransomware strain. The development involves collecting 13 months of sensitive data that came from the internal systems of the Conti ransomware gang. The researcher, who had access to Conti's systems, released the data after the notorious ransomware gang expressed support for Russia since its invasion of Ukraine. The data, which is in JSON format, includes Jabber chat logs, Bitcoin addresses, and negotiations between ransomware victims and the Conti attackers. Experts say that Conti data is a must-read for any security professional because it gives you an insight of how ransomware really works. Conti is one of the most prevalent types of ransomware. It was developed by a long-running Russian cybercrime group that's known as Wizard Spider. The group is believed to be responsible for the TrickBot malware botnet code, as well as the Ryuk and Bazaar Loader strains of ransomware. Nick?
Russian hackers have gotten a closer look at U.S. military weapons development and delivery timelines during a 2-year cyber campaign. A multi-agency alert warned the military of the campaign, which targeted defense industrial-based companies. CISA, the FBI, and others warned that Russian actors have maintained persistent access to multiple networks, in some cases for at least 6 months. The information targeted in the campaign is unclassified but sensitive and non-public. This could prove insight into U.S. weapons platforms development and deployment timelines, vehicle specs, and plans for communications infrastructure and information technology. The campaign leveraged spear phishing attacks, taking advantage of easily guessed usernames and passwords, and exploiting other existing unpatched network vulnerabilities, among other techniques. Layla?
Well, newly published guidance from CISA is providing critical infrastructure organizations with instructions on how to prepare for and mitigate foreign influence operations. These operations have targeted U.S. audiences in recent years and have been paired with cyber attacks to create confusion and anxiety. Additionally, the agency recommends that organizations establish clear communication channels with their stakeholders and that they review their social media presence and access privileges for social media accounts. CISA also notes that decision makers should engage in active communication with other entities in their sector to build a trusted network. Nick?
Well, new legislation has passed the Senate aimed at strengthening the cybersecurity of critical infrastructure and government networks. The passage doesn't come a moment too soon as Russia attempts to invade Ukraine and wage a cyber war with other nations, including the U.S. Threat groups linked to Moscow have mostly focused on cyber espionage when targeting the West, but they've been known to launch destructive attacks in other parts of the world. The bill requires critical infrastructure owners and operators, as well as civilian federal agencies, to inform CISA of any significant cyber attacks within 72 hours. CISA would also have to be informed about any ransomware payment within 24 hours. Layla?
Well, the U.S. government is calling attention to major weaknesses in the firmware supply chain. It warns that the layer below the operating system is fertile ground for devastating hack attacks. A new joint draft report points out that securing the firmware layer is often overlooked and that it's a single point of failure in devices that attackers can compromise devices at scale. The 96-page report warns that firmware's privileged position in the computing stack gives stealthy attackers a major advantage. The government's warning comes as threat hunters have spotted signs that nation-state APT actors are using UEFI firmware implants to maintain stealthy infections and survive reboots and OS reinstallations. Nick?
CISA has compiled and published a list of free cybersecurity services and tools to help organizations reduce cybersecurity risk. The repository includes services provided by CISA, widely used open source tools, and free tools and services offered by private and public sector organizations. Suggested foundational measures include fixing the known security flaws in software, implementing multi-factor authentication, halt bad practices, and get your stuff off search or SOS to reduce internet attack surfaces that are visible to anyone on web search platforms. We've got more to come. Severe flaws found in Samsung's popular Galaxy devices. Details after the break.
Today's network and security monitoring solutions are vulnerable to overload situations that lead to decreased visibility and undetected intrusions. Monitoring applications require hardware to keep up with real-time traffic analysis, making it complex and costly. Your security monitoring solutions may be unable to keep up during cyber attacks or traffic spikes, making intrusion more likely. A new approach is needed to increase network protection and visibility. Excelio simplifies and streamlines your network monitoring for critical security, network, and application analysis. Learn more at excelio.com.
Welcome back. Two new and powerful supercomputers are set to enter production service for the Defense Department early this year. The new supercomputers will be equipped with sophisticated artificial intelligence optimized storage capabilities for highly intensive workloads. The Pentagon first announced that it awarded California-based Penguin Computing 2 contracts worth a combined $68 million. Fresh software and machinery provided through the effort will enhance DoD's ability to tackle the most demanding and computationally challenging problems in fluid dynamics, chemistry, and materials science, among other applications. Supercomputers are generally measured in flops, or floating point operations, per second. A petaflop system is capable of computing 1 quadrillion calculations per second, Nick.
Wow, that's a lot of calculations.
Indeed.
All right, the Air Force Research Laboratory is deepening its exploration of commercial computer vision. This type of technology is essentially training digital systems to see the real world. The intention is to advance the nation's hybrid space intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or ISR architecture, and artificial intelligence that enables computers to interpret the visual world with the help of the organization Crowd AI. The company's software platform can be used by those without data science or coding experience to build computer vision models to analyze imagery and video. Crowd AI's connection to AFRL began in 2018 when the company won the lab's pitch competition at the inaugural Hyperspace Challenge. Crowd AI was the first commercial computer vision vendor to collaborate with the Pentagon's Joint Artificial Intelligence Center from its launch, and was recently named among businesses selected by the JAIC to perform testing and evaluation of AI models in its ecosystem. Layla?
Well, Air Force Space Systems Command wants outside entities to weigh in on its plans to produce live, virtual, and on-orbit space cybersecurity test and training events. The unit wants to hear from contractors that have the ability to provide an environment that can be customized on demand to match Intel-driven requirements. The chosen vendor also needs to demonstrate that they can enable blue and red cyber teams to simultaneously engage in scenarios, offer multiple scenarios catered to a range of different users, and operate environments at different classification levels. Responses to the request are due March 19. Nick?
Naval Information Warfare Systems Command has provided a glimpse into its information warfare mission to advance, align, deliver, support, and sustain capabilities that enable the future fleet. The Navy demonstrated how it maintains maritime superiority in a complex, information-driven environment. The IW Pavilion hosted 14 technology demonstrations and static displays that showcase various systems and capabilities that support and facilitate information warfare across all warfare domains. This included unmanned underwater vehicles, a 5G test lab, artificial intelligence integration in planning operations, predictive tools to increase readiness, cybersecurity applications, and software development. Layla?
The Navy is doing everything it can to defend against cyber attacks. The Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Information Warfare is urging military officials to play an alert and active role in U.S. cyber defense. The warning came as Russia's still intensifying attack on Ukraine started to unfold. Officers are asked to take time at quarters or staff meetings to discuss why vigilance by everyone will help mitigate fallout from such an attack. Every member of the branch is expected to follow cybersecurity policies and report anything questionable they notice in their networks. The Deputy Commandant for Information and Marine Forces Cyberspace Command published a message with the same tone and other recommendations to Marine Corps officials. Nick?
CISA, along with the FBI, has released new guidance on the Whispergate and Hermetic malware strains. The government agencies warned U.S. organizations and companies to look out for Whispergate and HermeticWiper after they have been seen used against organizations in Ukraine in the run-up to Russia's invasion of the country. Both CISA and the FBI reiterated that there is no specific threat about U.S. organizations or against U.S. organizations. CISA urged U.S. organizations to take measures to protect themselves by enabling multi-factor authentication, deploying antivirus and anti-malware programs, enabling spam filters, updating all software and filtering network traffic. CISA has also created a new Shields Up technical guidance webpage that provides more details on other cyber attacks facing Ukraine and technical resources to deal with those threats. Layla?
Chipmaker NVIDIA has reportedly suffered a massive outage after an alleged security incident affected the company's developer tools and email systems. The two-day attack was caused by a malicious network intrusion. The California-based NVIDIA designs graphics processing units for the gaming and professional markets, as well as system-on-a-chip units for the mobile computing and automotive market. South American ransomware group Lapsus has claimed responsibility for the incident and claims to have exfiltrated nearly 1 terabyte of proprietary data. Lapsus Group hit the limelight in December following a ransomware attack on websites owned by Brazil's Ministry of Health. The group claimed to have stolen and subsequently deleted around 50 terabytes of data from the ministry's system.
And during the attack, the chip company says employee credentials and proprietary information were stolen. The company says access to NVIDIA Employee VPN requires the PC to be enrolled in mobile device management. With this, they were able to connect to a virtual machine they use. The company says that following the incident, they hardened their network, engaged cybersecurity incident response experts, and notified law enforcement. Layla?
In an effort to continually refine cybersecurity responses, the National Security Agency released the Network Infrastructure Security Guidance. The report captures best practices based on the depth and breadth of experience in supporting customers and responding to threats. Recommendations include perimeter and internal network defenses to improve monitoring and access controls throughout the network. Existing networks likely have some or most of the recommended configurations and devices noted, so administrators can use the report to help prioritize next steps in continuing to harden their network against cyber threats. Nick?
Federal nuclear regulators want external researchers to demonstrate how artificial intelligence and machine learning can pinpoint cyber attacks against the nation's nuclear power plants. The request comes almost a year since the Commission asked for feedback regarding how AI and ML technologies are used in nuclear power operations. Potential partners must have a range of capabilities to meet their criteria, including assets to simulate nuclear power plants and cyber attacks on them, and the resources to complete the work in 16 months. Responses to this source's sought notice are due February 18th.
Well, vulnerabilities have been discovered by researchers in some of Schneider Electric's ESRG relays. The flaws can allow hackers to disable protections for electrical networks. 3 high-severity vulnerabilities have been found in ESRG medium voltage protection relays. 2 impact ESRG's P5 devices, and 1 affects their P3 devices. An attacker could exploit the security hole to cause the relay to reboot, or they can gain full control of the device. Schneider Electric has credited several researchers from embedded security solutions provider Red Balloon Security for reporting the vulnerabilities. The vendor has released patches that should address the security flaws. Nick?
Nearly $2 million in virtual assets were stolen by malicious actors who took advantage of a smart contract upgrade process in the OpenSea NFT marketplace. The phishing attack targeted 17 of its users with a copycat email, redirecting the victims to a lookalike OpenSea webpage, prompting them to sign a seemingly legitimate transaction, only to steal all the NFTs in one go. Non-fungible tokens are digital tokens that act like certificates of authenticity for, and in some cases represent ownership of assets that range from expensive illustrations to collectibles and physical goods. The company says it's still investigating the exact source of the attack. Layla?
Global insurance broker Aon revealed that it's investigating a cyber incident impacting some of its systems. The company says the incident has not had a significant impact on their operations and is in the early stages of assessing the incident. But based on the information currently known, the company does not expect the incident to have a material impact on its business, operations, or financial condition. Aon provides risk, insurance, reinsurance, retirement, and health solutions. The company has roughly 50,000 employees across 120 countries and an annual revenue of more than $10 billion. Several major insurance companies disclosed cybersecurity incidents last year, including AXA, CNA, and Pan American Life. Nick?
A suspected Chinese APT group has been linked to an organized supply chain attack on Taiwan's financial sector. The attacks are said to have first commenced at the end of November, with the intrusions attributed to a threat actor tracked as APT-10, also known as Stone Panda, the Manu Pass Group, and Bronze Riverside. The disclosure comes as Taiwan's parliament unveiled draft amendments to national security laws aimed at combating Chinese economic and industrial espionage efforts. Unapproved use of critical national technologies and trade secrets outside of the country could carry up to a 12-year prison sentence. Layla?
Well, threat hunters at Symantec are calling global attention to a new, highly sophisticated piece of malware being used by a Chinese threat actor. The malware is called Daxin and features technical complexity previously unseen by such actors. The threat actors are using it to burrow into and hijack data from government and critical infrastructure targets. Symantec released indicators of compromise and technical details alongside documentation on how the Daxin malware implements advanced communications functionality for a high degree of stealth. Researchers said these advanced command and control features are reminiscent of Regan, an advanced espionage tool publicly attributed to Western intelligence services. Nick?
A group of academics from Tel Aviv University have disclosed details of now-patched severe design flaws affecting about 100 million Android-based Samsung smartphones. The shortcomings are the result of an analysis of the cryptographic design and implementation of Android's hardware-backed key store in Samsung's Galaxy's S8, S9, S10, S20, and S21 flagship devices. The flaw could have resulted in the extraction of secret cryptographic keys. Implications of such an attack could range from an authentication bypass to advanced attacks that can break fundamental security guarantees offered by cryptographic systems. And for our last story, last but not least, we'd like to congratulate Jen Easterly, the director of the DHS Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. She's been selected for the Admiral Grace Hopper Award, which is a prestigious annual award presented by the Chancellor of the National Defense University's College of Information and Cyberspace, otherwise known as the Cyber War College. More information about the school and award can be found at cic.ndu.edu. Layla?
Wow. Well, congratulations to her. Well, that's going to do it for us. On behalf of Nick and myself, thank you so much for watching. You are now in sync with MilCyberSync. We'll see you next week.